Hello, CC friends. Welcome to part 2 of the Polygons unit. Today I'm just going to glance through. I'll start on page 1, and I'm just going to highlight a few problem sets that I think are particularly awesome. If you look at page 1, there are just a lot of terms on that page, which are great to observe, to learn. Naturally, you'll probably have to go to the answer key to gain or to grab a lot of these terms, and that's okay. But the very first problem where it's labeled the shape, calculate the area and the perimeter is also great because it helps students to be able to plug those numbers in. It's a little dark in my room, I apologize. But, to be able to actually plug numbers in on that and solve it using the order of operations. I know in the past you've learned it as PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. You're going to hear the term GIMA in this curriculum, which is God is my answer. So with that, it's similar to the PEMDAS. I stands for index, so think of that as your exponents. Um, and God would be your grouping, so your parentheses. But it is even broader as you get into some of the higher functions, because there are functions that, yes, they might have parentheses, but there's things going on inside of the function, like your exponentials, your trig functions. So I do like that they're using that, but don't be afraid to also reference the PEMDAS if that's what you're more comfortable with, and know that if you see GIMA, that's what that's referring to too. And then the MA is multiplication addition, meaning that multiplication would also include division. You do that first, and then your addition would also include subtraction. Think of it as you're now combining numbers. You get rid of multiplication, division, and then you add, subtract. So that's a great problem set. There's a lot with angles, graphing points. Page 2, great, just a little bit of everything going on here. So great review even of some of the stuff they've done when they were plotting the coordinates in the beginning of the 2D units. But again, just with plugging in the pieces, this whole unit is awesome just because it really has a lot of math for them to do. Some of them have had less of the actual, solving the problems and more of almost like learning, analyzing. So this one's great for some problem solving practice. Your page 3, we have different types of shapes. So this is great chalk. Again, don't be afraid to reference the answer key because it's really going to help them understand how do these formulas connect to, the number of sides, number of vertices. Is it equilateral, meaning equal sides? Is it equal angular, meaning equal angles? And so that's a great one to just kind of reference, but don't stress if you don't know everything. Look in the answer key. And then even when it's showing the area here, this is just, these are kind of, think of these like fun puzzles that you can do. They're not, they're showing just the different powers of x. Oh, almost like a 1D, a 2D, a 0. It's showing how x to the 0 is 1, and then 2 times x to the 1 because you have 2 of those, and then you have 1x squared. It's showing that how does that squared actually work. So it's a cool breakdown. It's not, if it's kind of bogging your mind a little, don't stress it too much. Then on page 4, tons and tons of calculations. Don't even feel like you have to do every one, but just great practice on all fronts on this page for arithmetic, algebra, mostly arithmetic here. Just, encourage it, especially if they are still struggling with fractions or they're struggling with units. Teach them inches times inches is inches squared. If they're struggling with square roots and working the math underneath the square root first and then taking the square root, all that is great. This is even a great time to teach them how to use a calculator. Don't let them become dependent on it, but teach them that it's important that they still follow that order if they're plugging these values into a calculator. And, I'm not going to go through every page, but, then it kind of bounces back to some others, just showing what are all these different parts, what are all these different terms. Again, I learned some new things. Don't be afraid to reference, toggle back and forth when it's things like this and it's talking about definitions. Learn it yourself too, learn it with them, do the research, teach them how to research online under your guidance, these are great opportunities. Don't feel like that if you didn't know some of these things, there's a problem because a lot of this could be new things for you, as some of them were new for me. I didn't even know what the centroid versus the incenter, circumcenter. I'm still trying to even grasp some of those concepts myself. So, because this is heavy in geometry, and again, we all have a different background. This is not my forte, so to say. There's some great math practice down here again on page 5. And then, just continues onward. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that stands out. Because by now that the progression, 4 pages, then it kind of repeats, but shows you some new stuff. 4 more pages, repeats. But that would be my general strategy for you this week. If you're trying to work through it, make sure you get all the important stuff out of the way, and maybe have the goal to finish the 16 pages, but saying, hey, if I don't finish those 16 pages, where should I focus? So if your child is still struggling a lot with the actual arithmetic aspect of math, focus in on those problems, and they're all throughout. Especially, you're going to see them. This is page 8. You're going to see them where they're calculating areas or perimeters, and it's kind of walking them through the steps. Focus on those areas, or if they're solid on that, then go a little deeper and learn these definitions, or go a little deeper, talk about, um, it's my little one talking in the background. Go into more of the definitions and maybe memorizing some of them, or deeper discussions of why this might be. Why the formula. We have the number of angles, formulas, number of sides, number of vertices. It talks about on this page. This is page 9. And it's really cool because this chart shows you the different shapes. We look at the number of sides, number of vertices, we list them, and then we kind of come up with a formula that's going to show us how, in general, how many degrees are inside certain shapes, and the number of vertices, and so forth. So it's really cool. There's a lot of neat stuff in here. I hope it's for anybody that's felt a little stressed. Hopefully, it's a bit of a breath of fresh air. And I don't have a whole lot more to say on this because a lot of it is, when I use the term self-explanatory, don't feel like that means that, oh, you should get it, and then maybe you're totally lost. Self-explanatory meaning that it's either pure math calculations, or it's a lot of new terms, new things that you either maybe learned and forgot, or maybe never saw before. So again, that's the purpose of this, is to not be afraid to go to other sources, do a little bit of research. There's also some videos I know on CC Connected. Don't be afraid to reference those, but allow this, especially if you've been scared that your student's lacking of the practice of calculations. Use this week. Even save the packet if you don't get through all of it. Save it for a couple weeks, so if you have a little extra time, they can do more practice problems, and you'll probably find that you enjoy it and they enjoy it too. So that's all I have this week. Feel free to post questions if you have any, and I hope you enjoy. See you next time.